Hello, everybody. We are just getting started. Um, I think we're thrilled to see the number of people that are here. Um, Let us briefly introduce what it is that we're going to do today and thank AIEA for helping us demonstrate for you the possibilities of the thematic forum for both yourselves and for your institutions as we go forward. I'm grateful that both Hannah and Ashley are here from AIEA to help us out. And also members of the Thematic Forum Professional Development and Engagement Subcommittee. Hans Stockton is also here. I don't think any of our other members were able to join us, but our committee spans quite literally the entire world. So time zones can make it complicated. So we're really pleased to see the people that are here. And then I'd also like to introduce, just briefly, they'll introduce themselves when they speak, Jolynn, Shoemaker, and Zhou, who are here to let us know a little bit about their experience in hosting thematic forums as you put together a proposal. We are going to put up in the chat. This really is meant to be a workshop, so we are going to put in the chat a link to the worksheet that we are hoping that you will utilize while we are going through the material in the PowerPoint. We are also going to use the chat a great deal and sort of call out points in time where we're hoping that you'll share information in the chat itself. And we're going to begin with asking you to share who you are and where you're from so that we get a sense of who it is that's here. So we're looking forward to having everything begin. And having said that, I think we've given it a little bit of time, and I think I'm just going to get started. Maybe. Okay. So what are our aims for today? I'm Elizabeth Langridge-Noti. I'm the chair of the subcommittee for the Thematic Forum from Professional Development and Engagement for AIEA. We are looking to have people really think about what's possible at their own institution with a thematic forum. We're going to give you a brief idea of what a thematic forum is. We're hoping that through showing you successful examples of thematic forum, we're going to spark ideas about what's possible at your own institution. And then we're going to run through a little bit how we review those proposals coming into us. As I noted, we've put up in the chat, and we'll put it up once or twice more, the How to Write a Thematic Forum Proposal handout. We're going to utilize that handout as the basis for what we do today. And I would tell you, if you can, just go ahead and use it as a way of workshopping what you're thinking about at your own institution, whether you're considering it for this year or in the future. So what is a thematic forum? And while I'm giving you that information, I really do encourage you to let us know who you are and where you're from in the chat itself. So thematic forums are an opportunity for international education leaders to meet and engage with what's going on right now in internationalization. And it can be pretty much anything. What are the topics that are important for an international education office? What is important for global engagement? And they are meant to be ways of creating community and communicating best practice, or troubleshooting emerging issues amongst leadership within the international education and global engagement universe. Themes can go pretty much anywhere, and they can be of value to large institutions, small institutions, research or teaching institutions. And we're hoping to spark cross-border engagements as well, so US and international institutions. We are able to, at the moment, host about 3 a year. we are considering a variety of different types of engagement. And so as we go on, we welcome questions about that as well. So having introduced you briefly, I'm going to turn the stage over to one of my colleagues, Jolynn Shoemaker, to talk a little bit about a recent thematic forum at Davis. And then we're going to turn to JY, who can talk a little bit about a couple of engagements that she's helped host at different institutions. And then we'll turn to the worksheet itself.
Great. Thank you, Liz. It's great to be here and see everyone from different parts of the country here. So it's exciting to see so much interest. We had a great experience at UC Davis hosting a thematic forum in spring of 2024. So I thought I would just give kind of like a couple of highlights, that might be important in terms of considering as you start to go through the Google Doc, start to think about your steps and what might be the right topic and the right timing for your institution. So this was the title of our forum. And it was really on integrating the UN Sustainable Development Goals into internationalization strategies on campuses. And we really looked at research, teaching, and engaging communities as the kind of core areas where we were digging in for that forum. Liz, if you want to advance, I can. In terms of choosing a theme for us, and I think this was a successful approach, is we were really building on something that was already a strategic priority. And we had been working for some years on this topic. And so that really kind of gave us a sense of the lay of the land and sort of the ecosystem around what was happening with higher ed and the SDGs. But also it gave us some time to learn some lessons and some practices that worked for us and some practices that didn't work, and really also think very strategically and deliberately about if we're getting people together from many universities, what would be useful to everyone, and where were kind of the gaps where we weren't having those opportunities for community building so much. So we really looked at it as an opportunity to align with existing university priority, and then just really support this community building and these connections on issues that we all have some challenges with this type of integration. And so how could we benefit the higher education sector? So really also looking at the timing for that, and the timing was really important for us to choose carefully. In terms of building an agenda, we really looked at, the current state of play on the SDGs kind of worldwide, and also in higher ed as kind of our baseline before we built the agenda. But then we did a lot of consultations on as we were developing the agenda. And those consultations were both with external partners that we work with and networks and so forth, but also internally across campus with our partners. And this isn't like, I don't mean to imply this is a super formal process. It was pretty informal, but like what would you need and what would be useful, and where in terms of structuring this, where are you interested? And that's where also those three focus areas came out of research, teaching, and engaging community. We also did that consulting pretty early to avoid conflicts, because as we know, calendars fill up so quickly. And even if this is months ahead, we wanted to make sure to deconflict from anything major going on campus, but also anything else that could conflict that higher education professionals would be interested in the forum might be torn with that. So we looked at that too. And we also, frankly, with the budget constraints on everyone, we have to justify travel. So we were kind of looking very strategically at building our agenda and our speakers around sort of a combination of being able to draw on campus locally and then a few strategic external speakers, because that had real implications for budget as well. So one other thing is, just very much leveraging what your campus has to offer. That's a big part. That was a big part for us, is really like, how are we going to use this not only to benefit and to bring people together from multiple universities, but how are we also going to use it to build champions within our own university, to have an opportunity to bring our existing partners into the programming, but also to really make connections across campus that maybe we didn't have before, and get those people kind of involved in this issue area and into what our office has to offer for them as well. So that's a little bit about building the agenda. We involved staff and students as well, and we can talk about that if there's interest in kind of how we, like the points we did that, but it wasn't just for help and logistics. We tried to also bring in staff and students for content as well, and content discussions. Let's see. The other thing I would just say about agenda is, it seems like participants really love the opportunity for networking and interaction. And so one thing I would say, on building the agenda is just really to make sure you're not so tight on, panel after panel or speaker after speaker, and you really build in quite a bit of time. And even if you can be flexible a little bit, like if it looks like, hey, some great table discussions are going, let's just extend a little bit. Any flexibility on that, I think, really is appreciated by participants coming as well. And then leveraging resources. So this is, a question for all of us, because, we are all tight on resources. And so looking at, obviously, funding, but also people and what you have to offer and strengths and other types of assets on your campus. And so it's pretty important for these thematic forums to go into it. AIEA, we're grateful for the support that is offered, but go into it knowing that this is a cost share, that your university is going to have to put some investment into this to make it work. And so and you can make choices. You have to make, obviously, choices with the amount you have for that cost share, and what your priorities are. So it goes along with kind of building your agenda so it works for your campus as well. But we were also able, and it's really important, this is where your campus partners really leveraging those partnerships and sharing, right, what everyone has to offer can really reduce your burden on resources as well. So really thinking about that. And I know there's been some questions before about like the budget items and what were the biggest costs and things like that. For us, the biggest costs were food costs. By far. And we did make certain choices. We had a very large luncheon because we wanted to bring in community people and faculty and others. So that was a choice. And there were other food costs in the reception and so forth, but not every thematic forum needs to have all that. And then the travel, then when we did have it, some external speakers, those were the two big costs. We had other costs that I can share if people are interested, but I want to leave plenty of time, so that I'll leave it there for now on this slide. And I don't know, Liz, do you want me to just briefly say the third or move on? Oh, okay. I can just briefly say we had a survey. It's very important, obviously, we know, to get feedback afterwards, not only for your own campus and your own programming, but also to inform AIEA. And we were very pleased with the feedback afterwards, and we actually surveyed right away, but then we surveyed a little further out, about a year out, just to see if people took some things out of that and ran with them on integrating the SDGs. And we were very pleased to see that the the thematic forum really does catalyze action, and the relationships keep going. So yeah, so that's all I'll say about that. But yeah, it was positive in all senses. You're on mute.
But I get the cue. I'll go. Hey everyone, I'm JY. And can you go to the next one? Next slide, please. I'll go to that one first. Yeah, I just want to share that I did two thematic forums. And the first one is 2019. That's at that time we did this SIO faculty partnerships. And the second one was last year, 2025, at James Madison University. We did one on developing globally engaged institution and specifically on the global operations. So that's the two topics. Can you go back to the first previous slide? Thanks. So yeah, I want to go around these are the questions. So the first one is that how I decide the topics. For me, I choose the topics because this is something I don't know. I want to know more, or I think it's relevant to our work. So that's one thing that I really want to see. For the first topic, that faculty relationship, faculty partnership, how to work with SIO as a really faculty partnership. So that's one I want to do more. And the second one, we talk about global operations, all those things behind the scene, those budget, how the budget will work, how the risks management, and all those parts that we don't get talked a lot. So that's how I choose topics. So for me, I feel that the themes, the topics, how relevant would that be to our field? And at the same time, how relevant would that be to your institution? Is there something that you have expertise on your campus that you can bring to the conversation? And the second one is how I really, for the agenda, for my first one, I did 1.5 days. And I found that half day, that the other half day is very tricky because people might need to leave earlier or those. So half day, sometimes that if they have flight in the afternoon, they probably need to leave in the morning. So it's still very tricky. So I choose to go would be 1 day or 2 days. That will be give the most of time for that one. And also, I think for the speakers will be how much you want to give around this big theme that for the global operations, and because all those for the global operations will be different topics around it, and then for each of those will be workshop like or session presentation, or how much you think the audience would know about those. So depending on that one, you also need to think about what's the best way to go with that. The idea behind it, as really we shared earlier, we want our audience to take the topic back to their campus and they can really apply what they learned here to their campus. So the practical implication is very important. So that will help us to see that how long you think about the sessions. And based on that one, you can really develop the agenda for those. Another one I put here is where the speakers are from. That's probably one of the topics most of it will be in the US, from abroad. That will also help us to see that how this will go. I think we did that for the all in-person ones, but sometimes I think that if you can get someone join us virtually, that could be a possibility for this. The last one I want to share is really the budget. For the two events I did, for the first one, I paid a little bit stipends to the speakers. And for the second one, I think the travel expenses is a lot. And so we use that budget to cover the hotel, cover the accommodation. And so that will be how you, and then how you would like to develop, use a budget. As Jolynn talked about, the cost share is a big thing depending on the topic, depending on how much you develop the budget. So in a certain way, you will have, this is how much you are expecting to spend, and then based on how much you will receive and what are the other cost share resources, and then that will go back to see how many speakers, how you want to use that one. So the overall, the process of budget from day one to all the way to wrap up this, for me, I see this is really a mini grant. It's a grant that how we use that, using that guidelines, the ways you would treat a grant, use the same way to treat this. This is a grant from AIEA. Yeah, I'll stop here and then go back to.
Thank you for those of you that are putting questions in the chat. We will come back to them at the end, and people may add to them as we're going on. So, okay. So I'm gonna do, I think, yes, one last time. I'm gonna upload the handout into the chat. And we're now actually going to work our way through the handout so that you can think about what's possible at your own institutions and where you might want to pursue possibilities going forward. So the first thing to think about is, what do you bring to the table, or what are the topics that you are interested in? What sticks? And you want to think of it in three particular areas. What is the saliency of the topic that you're thinking about for global engagement and global education? Does it have saliency for that larger topic? Is this one of the things that's being talked about in our field at the moment? What's the saliency for AIEA's goals and for its members? This is a grant from AIEA, so they want to see global engagement, global education move forward. They also want to see their own institution, what they're interested in, what their vision, what their mission is, move forward as well. And the third saliency should be your own institution's goals. What does your institution want or see as its vision and its mission? And what is your global strategic planning doing towards those goals? And how does a thematic forum fit into that? So with both Jolynn and JY, they were talking about issues that were important to their institution, important to themselves and their office, and important sort of largely overall for the kinds of topics that people were thinking about now. And I'd love to see in the chat, if people want to go ahead and put down some of the topics that you're thinking, these are things I'd like to see addressed, maybe finding partners along the way. The second thing you want to think about, and this is the second piece in your handout, is, what do you bring to the table? What is it that your institution and your office can bring to the table itself? Are there particular strengths at your institution that you can draw upon? So Jolynn talked about the SDGs and the SDG work that Davis was already doing. And so it already had started to stake a claim in what was happening to allow it to move forward with a thematic forum that made sense for the institution. What are the strengths of you personally as an SIO or leader within your office to say, okay, I think I bring this to the table and I can gather around me a group of people that can speak to something that I'd like to learn more about, but also that I can give something back to an audience? Are there strengths that you can draw upon from neighboring institutions or partners that you have that allow you to create something that is joint in some fashion? And perhaps one of the best examples is one of this year's thematic forums that was University of Georgia, where they brought together a number of neighboring institutions to create a thematic forum that was looking at virtual exchange and collaboration. And so allowing for something that is done jointly with partners, jointly within your geographic area, to create something that has a larger strength and ways of bringing together people to work jointly towards a topic. Is there something special about your institution? Do you have a resource or a thing that you are pursuing, or a way of structuring opportunity, way of structuring operational aspects of things that maybe others can learn from? And therefore, a thematic forum would allow you to elaborate on that. Or is there something about your geographic area that would be particularly interesting? And I know somebody brought up, can we do a thematic forum outside of the US, perhaps in conjunction with an outside conference? Yes, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. You do have to think about, how are you going to draw AIEA members to something like that? And what is it that is special about the place or the topic that would allow for that to happen? So I am not stopping, but I am hoping that you are taking a look at your proposal the proposal worksheet and sort of jotting ideas down for yourself. And we'll come back to this a little bit later. And then moving backwards from that to say, well, if this is the outcome that I want, how do I get there? What is that going to mean in terms of who my speakers are? What kind of activities will help us get there? So for those of you that actually work in faculty space as well, backward design. We're looking at what are our outcomes, what are our goals, and how do we get there in terms of how we design the workshop itself. So be thinking before you actually start crafting your agenda and think, oh, I want this person to speak and that person to speak. What do they bring to your final goal for the workshop in order for the forum, in order for you to get to that final goal? And this final goal is, what do you want people to know? What do you want people to actually learn from being there? Or what do you want them to have done? So your goal can be putting learning opportunities in front of people, or it can be, I want people to come away with a draft program or a draft project that they can bring back to their own institution. So it depends a little bit on the topic and what it is that you're thinking about in terms of what you want people to take away. But you should be able to let us on the review committee know this is what I want people to come away with. And finally, in terms of thinking about what it is that you're going to do, you want to think about the budget. You want to take a look at what AIEA money can be used for. It's fairly broad in terms of what it can be used for, but it can't be used for everything. So amongst other things, can't be used for salary. So you have to look at that as cost share. It cannot be used to grow a scholarship program or something at your own institution. And I know for some of you, you may say, well, wait a second, but yes, people have said that. That really is meant to be used for the forum itself, for things like food, opportunities to visit things, speakers that you might have coming, those types of things. So you want to be thinking, what can that money be used for? And then what resources do you have on your own campus to supplement that? What is it that you can bring to the table? Do you have rooms that belong in your building that you have access to that you can use for free? Is there something special on your campus that you can take people to? So Jolynn hinted at this. They were working with the Sustainable Development Goals. They took participants to the student farm to take a look at what the students were doing in terms of thinking about sustainable agriculture. So what is it that's on your campus? Who is it that's on your campus that you might make use of that can be essentially cost share in terms of the forum itself? So what does our review process look like? Well, the review process looks at a couple of different things, and we'll go through these in just a second, but I want to turn to the right-hand side of the slide and just say we are thinking about a couple of different things when we work through this in terms of support and benefit for AIEA members. It is an AIEA grant, so we do want to see that this is something that is going to benefit our larger community. And we're also looking for what meaning and benefit does it have for your institution? So why are you choosing to do this at your institution with what it is that you're doing? How are you going to grow your global office and the global engagement and outreach of your office as part of this? So those three things are important to us as we're going through. And then, not surprisingly, our review process actually reflects the pieces that we've just gone through now. We're looking for what's the saliency of the topic to what it is that's happening right now in global engagement and international education. Have you chosen something that really seems like it is a juicy topic for now? What kind of support are you going to get from your home institution? And this can be in-kind support. That is, we're giving rooms. We have speakers that are speaking from our campus that we're not necessarily having to pay a stipend to, but it also can be financial. Our office has said they'll cover extra costs, or they'll put this much money into buying lunch or something else. It depends on what's happening at your own institution, but we do want to see that your institution has said, yeah, we have skin in the game as well. So, but it doesn't have to be financial skin in the game. It can be in-kind skin. Details. We want to know that you actually have thought this through. So it's not enough to say, here are the topics. We'll work the rest of it out later. We want to know, who are your speakers? Are the in-house ones, the external ones? What topics do you plan to cover? And we want to know this with as much specificity as possible. So we recognize that a year out, you may not know all of your speakers. You may not have had acceptances from all of your speakers, but you probably have some idea in putting this together who you'd like to ask. And you probably have some idea, at least a little bit, of who some of the speakers will be. So laying out as many of the details as you can in terms of how much time are we going to take for particular things? What's going to happen in particular session? Who are speakers going to be? What kind of panels are we going to have? As much as you can in terms of being specific, be specific. If you don't know something, like we know we want a panel on this, we are approaching a number of speakers from outside to come in because we don't have that expertise on our campus, that's okay too. Okay. But if your entire agenda is that, there probably is a little bit of work that still needs to be done. And finally, what outcomes do you have? What are the speakers supposed to come away with? Are there learning outcomes that you want to put into place? Is it a draft program? Is there something concrete? We're going to be looking for those too. Have you specified something concrete that you want people to come away with? And again, it doesn't need to be, they have a new program. It can be, we want them to have learned about this topic. And we are bringing people from our campus and from elsewhere to help us learn about this topic. But we do need to know that you have focused on this is what people are supposed to get out of it. Okay, so I'm actually going to stop sharing screen so that we can see everybody on the page, and we're going to go to questions. Okay. First question you asked, with ever tighter budgets and the cost of air travel going up due to fuel shortages, do you envision a greater capacity for hybrid thematic forums? Yes, and both of the thematic forums that actually took place this year had some kind of hybrid component to it. For all of you, it's probably not a surprise that a thematic forum that is looking at virtual exchange and COIL had a virtual component to it. So that was built into that as well. I believe, and if somebody on the call was actually at the one in UNC, I believe ultimately the one in UNC, the person who was speaking from Belfast ultimately didn't physically make the trip, but still participated in the forum as a speaker in the forum itself. So that's possible. We have discussed the possibilities of sort of trying to jointly create something that's much more complicated in terms of really doing something fully jointly, and you'd have to think a little bit carefully about how to do that. I will say UGA, their forum, which they've only just finished, I think they had 75 people because they had not only the people in the room, but they also had their partners for virtual exchange joining them virtually. So they had to set up something that will allow those virtual partners to participate as much as the partners that are, or the participants that are on campus. Having said that, normally for one of these thematic forum, you are not looking at an in-person audience of much more than about 35, 40. These are meant to be relatively intimate, so people can really interact with one another. And both Jolynn and JY talked about the fact that that interaction is a key component of the thematic forum. This is meant to build community within within global engagement and international education. If you have 100 people, it's much harder to build that kind of intimate community. So you want to think carefully about the balance between those two things in terms of what it is that's there. Yes, forum events can take place out of the United States. They do need to be really carefully planned that way. The vast majority of AIEA members are within the United States, and this is meant to be something that is of a benefit to AIEA members. So if you choose to do something out of the United States, you would need to be able to indicate how you are planning on soliciting participation by AIEA members as part of your call for participants. And somebody else actually asked about selectivity in the registration process for participants. I think it depends on your topic. I don't know, and JY and Jolynn, you may be able to answer this better than me. I don't know that because they're in person, that you usually have so much more request for participation than what it is that a particular forum can handle. But I could be wrong about that. And JY and Jolynn, do you want to address that a little bit?
JY, I don't for yours, I don't know, but for UC Davis, we kind of just ended up organically with the right amount of the right number. We didn't have to turn anyone away. We obviously we had several points where we were bringing in other campus people, and we wanted to have room for that as well. But we didn't run into a problem with the final number. We just accepted as, we looked and made sure obviously they were affiliated as with an institution as they registered. But it just worked out. We didn't have a problem with, it wasn't too little and it wasn't too large. So we were good.
I can add another part is that I always worried about if no one sign up, what can we do? So I think that's will be when we develop the topic, we'll have an idea about who the audience would be. So that's also related with one of the previous questions about having that outside of the US. Because you will see that who would travel, who would come, who would be there in person or virtually. So that will help us to at least have an idea about the foundation of the audience. And based on that one, and then we reach out to those people that, okay, for our topic on the global operations will be people working on the budget, right? People working on those risks management part, those people that's our audience. For the faculty partnerships, so we'll be working with faculty on the curriculum internationalization. So that will help us to go with those. And then in terms of that, and then when we see those applications, we'll see that how people would contribute to the discussion. Even though we have panels, right, talking about those, but that networking is super, super important for people to know each other, how you would do that on your campus. We're interested in this. And we see that the AIEA panel sessions come out of those forum. So that's another part when we go through our audience, really participants.
JY actually brought up a good point. If you've hit a sweet spot in terms of a forum idea, it usually is something that's going to turn into further discussion at AIEA meetings or NAFSA meetings, or it is coming out of something that has started as a bud at an AIEA meeting or a NAFSA meeting, and you can see that it's a larger topic that is worth having more intimate, extended discussions about over a longer period of time than just an hour that you get at a conference one way or another. The only other thing I'd say in terms of participants, you want to be a little bit careful about, we're going to invite my entire university because this is really my entire university is of interest. The primary audience for your forum should be AIEA membership. So you should be thinking about that as the primary audience and how you're going to reach them. And then thinking about your institutional audience as perhaps secondary. So again, I can speak a little bit to the Davis one. There was a deliberate plan for a luncheon that included larger parts of the office so that they could benefit from parts of it. But that was not the primary audience for the overall forum. The primary audience for the overall forum were the people that came as AIEA members to the forum itself. And JY, I expect that would have been similar for your fora as well. And that definitely was the case for the Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill Forum that took place this year, and I haven't had a chance to look at UGA more closely. Any other questions that I'm missing here? Cycle of grant applications meant to be for 27-28. No, the cycle of grant is for 26-27. So you apply now, and the idea is that you would put it into place over the course of this next year. There is not a budget template or format. 30 to 50 people is ideal. There's no budget template because it's really relatively simple. So a simple Excel sheet can give that to you. There's not a lot of this is forbidden, this must be, you must write in benefits and that kind of complicated budget. So a relatively simple Excel sheet should work. Jolynn, JY, if people write and ask you about budgets, is that okay?
Yeah. That's totally fine. In our case, we just, because there's no budget template, ours was basically a Word document broken down by the different categories of expenses. 1 page, that was it.
Preferred or suggested duration, 1 to 2 days. It really is up to you and the topic. Just make sure that when you build the agenda, you've built an agenda that makes sense over the course of the time that you've asked for. And as JY noted, it's going to depend a little bit on, do you have the money, or do you think people are going to have the money to stay overnight? Or do you think you're better off doing it in a single day and allowing people to go home at the end of the day? So it depends. It depends on it depends on who your audience is. I think the vast majority that I've seen over the last couple of years are 2 days to give people really time to network with one another closely. Any other questions? I think I've covered everything that was in the chat. Do people have other questions? Questions about the template? Questions about what they need to do? We're happy to answer any of them that we can.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting, and to hear about your experiences helped me because I'm in the middle of drafting it up, and it's always nice to hear other experiences. And putting a shout out, because I did see somebody from the University of Maryland. I'm very open to co-hosting. We're in DC, so there are a lot of colleagues and members in DC. I think it's better to co-host and do something in that sense than doing things on your own. And so I'm going to put my email in the chat in case any other colleagues from the DMV or even larger areas want to collaborate. I'm going to be focusing more on workforce readiness, actually, and linking career development and to our international experiences. And so putting that in the chat. Anybody wants to connect, please do. But thank you again, both of you, for sharing your experiences with us. It was very informative.
And I would encourage those of you that are in the same area to talk to one another. You may have one idea now. There may be another idea a couple years down the line that you want to do. So, and as you network with people within your area, it also builds a much stronger network of people that you can talk to about other things as well. So it's building that network as well. So please do if you're in the area with somebody else. Okay. Well, then I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us today. I'm looking forward, and I know Hans is looking forward to seeing what proposals come out of today. I think the Thematic Forum is one of the places that AIEA has a lot to offer the broad range of its membership. And so seeing them thrive and the ways in which we want to think about them going into the future is going to be important to us. So thank you so much for joining us today.